So today's topic is on how to set boundaries. How do we set boundaries? Let me share with you. This is probably one of the most difficult things to do for people that are empathic, compassionate, and feelers. Because what happens when we are setting boundaries or wanting to is that we have to say yes to ourselves. We have to say, you know what? I count. But when we are others centered, when we are feelers, what ends up happening is we end up saying no to us and saying yes to somebody else. Now, every once in a while, doing that is okay. It's kind of like if you're baking a cake and you have all the right ingredients and then you put a pound of sugar or salt or 15 eggs in the batter. If you put it in the oven and put the cake in the oven and you go to taste it afterwards, it's not going to taste very well. The same thing with setting boundaries. If you put a little sprinkle of it, sprinkle of salt, sprinkle of sugar, not a big problem. But if we're living our lives this way, what ends up happening is we start to erode our sense of self-worth, of who we are. So setting boundaries is the biggest act of love for us. And I want everybody, if you can, to say to you, to who you are, I count. Because even that claiming of that energy will start to shift how well you set boundaries. I remember back when my cousin was alive, and she's older, and I was at that time responsible for my mom, my cousin, and my cousin's husband. Now, I didn't take care of my cousin and her husband, but I was in charge of hiring, firing caregivers. It was just I look back at that time and I go, wow, how did I get through that? So it was kind of the first time that I was confronted with, I've got to set boundaries in a very not so easy way. You guys know this about me. When I say you get a tap, tap, tap from the universe, you get a shake, shake, shake. And then if you're not paying attention, you're going to get a shove off the cliff. And the shove off the cliff for me meant, guess what? There is no water below. And so I was forced to have to start to learn how to create better boundaries. And I remember how difficult that was to say, we're not going to do it just because you want something. I also have to allow it to work for me. So I'd like you to think about an area in your own life that you may need to get better at setting boundaries. It may be just with you and yourself, saying, you know what, at 5 o'clock, I'm going to stop work and I'm going to let that be, throughout this week, and I'm going to put some more balance. It may be that I'm going to limit the amount of time that I'm talking to a certain person. It may mean that I'm going to say no when I've always said yes. Wow. So if we say no when we've always said yes, let me tell you, people around you that are used to you not setting boundaries are not going to like it. So what do you do with that? For empaths, feelers, or people that think of others, that's not an easy place to be. Because if I give up me to make sure you're happy, then one of us is not going to be happy. Now, the weirdest thing happens with people that you're wanting to set boundaries with, if it's not your own self that you're doing this with, is that the people that you need to set the boundaries with the most are the ones that don't really care about your feelings the most. So it's not usually the people that are the win-win people in your life. Like you go, gosh, I really won't be able to make it this Saturday. I really won't be able to make it this Saturday. So what happens when we can't make it on Saturday? The other person in which we are trying to set our boundaries with won't go, oh, I totally understand. What they'll do is they'll turn it around and create a manipulation to make you feel bad. So you will know the people that you need to set the boundaries with the most are the ones that are usually the ones that are not the understanding ones. So what I do when I have to set boundaries with people that are unrealistic, what I'll do is I'll say something like this. I want to make this a win-win situation for both of us. I won't be able to make Saturday, but I can make next Tuesday, let's say. But I want to give you a warning. When you change, most people don't like it. Most people that are difficult people with setting boundaries, around setting boundaries, don't like it when you change. So you have to be willing to say, I count. I have to be willing to ask myself some questions internally. Am I being reasonable? Am I giving some other options potentially? When we ask ourselves those questions and they come back that, yes, I'm being reasonable. Yes, I am willing to take my part in the situation, and the other person is not. You have to be willing to let them go. And I don't mean let them go out of your life, but let it go and be what it's going to be. You cannot fix it or change it. So setting boundaries has a lot to do with I count. And as I look around the screen, I see all these people that are really true givers in their life. They do give. You do give. But this week, what I want you to do is I want you to say to yourself, I count. I love myself. I care for myself. And then say to yourself, what does that look like for me? So, that lovely, very overquoted kind of metaphor of life. When you're on the plane, you give your oxygen mask first to yourself and then your children. But how many of us give our oxygen away, and at the end of the week, the end of the month, even the end of the day, we don't have any oxygen left for ourselves? So this week is about setting boundaries for yourself. I count. Then go, what does that look like if I count? What do I need to do for me to have more self-care in my life, self-love, and allow my priorities to come forward? Then if you get somebody that comes into your space that says, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that you're saying you count now. You've got to ask yourself, am I being reasonable with what I'm saying in a boundary? If they are not reasonable back, I want you to know this right now. You will not be able to fix it. And then comes the challenge of allowing yourself to take care of yourself, not fix it, and allow it to be okay. You keep coming back to center. Keep coming back to I count. It's one of the first ways to be able to learn how to set better boundaries, not only with other people, but with yourself. Allowing your own priorities, your own self-care and self-love to be the oxygen that brings your life forward.